Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. First things first, a big congratulations to Ol'Guy for being the winner of last week's giveaway. If anybody doesn't know, I run a giveaway every single week, so if you're interested and don't know how to enter, just stay tuned until later in the video and I'll tell you exactly how to. That said, we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by Clintosaurus Rex. Landlord tries to keep security deposit. No. About 10 years ago, my at-the-time girlfriend, now wife, and I moved from the area we went to college to an apartment near where we planned to start our careers. I say it was an apartment, but it really was the basement of a house that the landlord had walled off to create 2 apartments to rent. The place was kinda crappy, but the rent was cheap for the area and we were close to work. Everything was fine for a few months, but the only parking for us was on the street out front. The couple that rented the upstairs apartment had rights to the garage and the driveway. They paid more than we did. Suddenly, my car got a couple BS tickets for parking on the street. I'm guessing some butt clown cop needed to meet their quota, and my girlfriend's car got sideswiped in a hit and run. This crap had to stop. So we emailed the landlord, her preferred form of communication, to ask if there's anywhere safe for us to park. She replies, "Park anywhere you want." We had noticed that our upstairs neighbors usually eschewed the driveway to park in the front yard. They were horribly lazy, so we figured that would be a good spot for us too. We parked in the front yard the rest of the year. We figured that would be the end of it. We finished our lease, left the place in better shape than we found it, and requested our $1,500 security deposit back. After a couple weeks, we got a check for $700. What the freak? Since there was no explanation, we asked the landlord for one, and she replied that the deducted amount was to resod the lawn, claiming that parking on it had damaged it. Now, I was the one who cut the grass at this house while we stayed there, so I was well aware that the lawn was more weeds and bald spots than grass. Picture the African savanna in midsummer. No one had ever lifted a finger to landscape any part of the property, but the landlord wanted to sell the house once the leases were up, and she figured she could get the renters to pay for a nice new lawn. I complained to the landlord. Didn't care. I put in a complaint with the local housing department. Didn't care. I threatened to take her to court. Didn't care. So that's what I did. Took her to small claims court. I had never sued anyone before, so I was going in prepared. I took pictures of the entire front yard. The area that we damaged was actually one of the best patches of grass, though it did have a small rut that my tires made when the yard was muddy in the summer. I got testimonials from our upstairs and across the street neighbors. Most importantly, I printed out the email where the landlord told us to park anywhere. We were suing for $1,800 to cover court costs and us both missing a day of work on top of the full security deposit. In mediation, we said we would settle for $1,400, but she must have thought she was in the right because she refused to offer a penny more than the original $700 check, which we never cashed. When we got in front of the judge, it was pretty clear that she had no evidence, hadn't prepared anything, and just assumed that us kids would fall on our faces. We did not. We put everything we had in front of the judge and made our claim. He was impressed. He stopped us when we showed him the email to ask the landlord, "Did you really tell them to park wherever they wanted?" When she said yes, the judge replied, "Then what are we even talking about?" And that was that. Judgment in full for us, and that witch had to pay to resod her own darn lawn. Next time you tell someone to park wherever you want, you'd better mean it. Or at least, don't try to screw someone over when they comply with what you said. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. You really can't trust anybody, especially landlords, unfortunately, and the only bit of advice that I can have is before you actually move in, make sure you take pictures and document as much as you can, and any kind of communication that you have with landlords, make sure you save that if at all possible, because you never know when it might help you later down the line. If this happened to you, would you be willing to put in the effort to go all the way to small claims court and compile all this evidence in an effort to reclaim at least the other $600 of the $1,500 security deposit you put down? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by loCAtek. Ol'Guy gave grief, so... Yesterday was a very busy day at the big home improvement warehouse. People were stocking up on disaster response stuff, taking advantage of our Labor Day sales week. The district manager was doing an inspection, and there were only 2 of us scheduled to close the department. I was managing to multitask like a mother, going through 3 or 4 bottles of water. By the end of the night, I was puffing and panting behind my face mask, all while managing to stay cheerful and helpful to my clientele. When in comes the old man from the old world. I say this because he had an old-fashioned attitude towards women, but unfortunately for he and I was the only associate available to help him. So he comes into my tool department, interrupts my interaction with some other customers, and expected me to cater to his wishes immediately, then and there. I politely asked him to wait a moment, that I'd be with him shortly, and for that, I got a look of disapproving disgust. But he had no other choice but to wait until I was free. Turns out he wanted a toolbox. Not just any toolbox, but one of those massive shop boxes on wheels that are about the size of a small car. Well, good. A couple of $100 sale should be worth any grief that this old guy could give me. He'd already decided that he wanted this particular floor model, but the thing was, he wanted a discount. A big discount. Granted, this toolbox had been on the floor a long time with paint scratches and a few cartings, but that was just cosmetic, and it worked as a sturdy storage place for a lot of tools just fine. Because of the sale week, this shop box had already been marked down to $449. However, Ol'Guy wanted it for $300, which was beyond my discountability limit, and I told Ol'Guy that. However, I did call the manager, and while he authorized some negotiation, $325 would have to be the bottom dollar. I didn't tell Ol'Guy that information, just that the manager had said I could mark it down some more, but just not that low. So, a bit more haggling and Ol'Guy accepted a price of $349 as it is out the door. Done. Since this was a verbal discount price, Ol'Guy wanted me to accompany him to the checkout counter to finish the transaction. After we pushed the box to check out, the fact that he had to stand in line like everybody else made him cranky too, but I digress. While he waited, I had turned to help another customer with a key copy, and Ol'Guy had made it to the cashier to ring up his purchase. But she had some news for us. The sale price had already been further marked down to clearance for $300. Yay, right? Right? No, protests Ol'Guy. If he can have it for that price, he wants a new, still in the cardboard box one. Internally, I'm screaming, but this is what you wanted, isn't it? Politely but less cheerfully, I remind him that these are the last floor models. That's why the prices were so low. But no, he insists that I check the inventory. Meanwhile, he's holding up the line now too. Regardless, and even less cheerfully, I check that info in the scanner and show it to his face as proof that these were indeed all that we had left. So now, does Ol'Guy want what he said he wanted in the first place? No! He pouts that since he can't have a new one that we never had, and now that other customers are backing up behind him, now he demands to get a further discount on an already twice discounted clearance item. With a last-ditch effort at reminding him of what I've already told him, I can't do that, I flatly say. Then I don't want it. Twitch. What? I yelled and tore off my work glove, slapping him across the face with it. You insult me, sir, and you dishonor my ancestors. I must challenge you to a duel. We meet at dawn. No, I didn't say that, but I did just grab the bar of the toolbox, pulled it out of line, and said firmly, I'll just put it back then. Ol'Guy stammered, just give me a discount, just $25. No, and I pushed it away without looking back. This perfectly echoes the saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You already agreed to $349, you go to the checkout and they say, oh look, $300. You want even more off? I'm really glad the Ol'Guy didn't get the toolbox in the end, honestly. This next story is by Dargad082. You won't heed my warning about a shift not being covered over the weekend? Have a nice weekend. I work in an office and at the time, I was the new guy who only worked part-time, taking shifts here and there when needed. I could do pretty much anything and did it well, but often had to ask around for extra shifts to make ends meet. One day, our supervisor went on short-term disability leave after an accident and an assistant, let's call her Brenda, took over the job, which included the scheduling duties. Brenda was easily overwhelmed, and we believe that she was too proud to admit that she needed help. She had to plan the schedule for 5 teams, and I'd often tell her that I'd be available for more shifts to cover X or Y, as the slots were clearly empty. She was always pretty dismissive, and most times I'd end up not working more. People tried to work around her mishaps, so there was never any direct impact on the overall production. One time, I noticed that a lone position on the weekend that nobody wants to do when that lady was sick and away was not being backfilled, even though it was essential to have someone in that chair. Hoping for extra shifts, I sent Brenda a casual email to bring to her attention the fact that the shift was not filled and if she had plans for that yet. Her response was an extra long email on work ethics and respect for my colleagues' time, that I'm new here and I should learn my place, to stop begging for extra shifts all the time, and that she had nothing else for me that week. Duly noted, ma'am. Cue malicious compliance. My last day at the office that week was Wednesday, and I knew that the shift had still not been filled. When I left, I wished everyone a nice weekend, including Brenda. See you next week. It's important to mention that I was on call. They couldn't just put me on the schedule and expect me to show up. They'd have to confirm with me beforehand. I got many calls on Saturday, about 30 minutes after the beginning of that shift that was not being covered, asking where I was, why I wasn't in, that error alerts were being sent all over the country because nobody was there to do the job. I told the weekend manager that I was out of town as I wasn't on the schedule when I left on Wednesday. They'd need to take it up with Brenda. Monday morning, I was called in a senior manager's office. I was told that they were giving me a written warning because I didn't show up to work that weekend, and it caused a lot of trouble for other managers. I pulled the email thread and was able to prove that I warned Brenda that a shift was not being filled, that I would be available if needed, but that Brenda made it clear she didn't need me. They then checked the log to see when the schedule was last changed, and yep, Friday afternoon, long after I was gone. I made it clear that she made no attempt to try to contact me. The senior manager apologized and I was able to return to work. I don't believe Brenda was specifically punished, as we're all allowed mistakes, it happens. But she was eventually demoted. She retired probably a year after the incident. I ended up being promoted to full-time shortly after, and as it turns out, 10 years later, I'm now office supervisor, doing a much better job at managing schedules. That paper trail will save you. People will throw you under the bus in business all the time, and you need to be able to save yourself when necessary. Saving any correspondence, having an extra email and forwarding it to that, always a great idea. This next story is by kodasharp. Drop everything when you call? Got it. Back in March, my company furloughed a large amount of people, only keeping the bare minimum of essential people that I happened to be considered in. One of the rudest and most obnoxious people there was thankfully furloughed. So over the last 5 months, things have been great, but 2 weeks ago she came back and has been her usual horrible self. I work for a publishing company as an accountant. I rarely deal with any of the other employees that aren't the publishers, customers, or the other accountants. There is one sales representative. We will call her Mary. 2 weeks ago, as Mary was beginning her work again, she had made a call to me stating that she needed her access to our servers again, and I told her I'd get to it within the next hour, to which she replied, "I've been here for 16 years. I run this company. It doesn't work without me here, so you'll do it and you'll do it now." Well, we did just fine for almost 6 months without you, but who am I to argue with stupid people? She gets her access to the office drives first, scanners, printers, nothing special, and decides it's her turn to send an email to the owner of our company saying that I was disrespectful and I wouldn't do anything for her, so he needed to put me in my place. Sure enough, Mary got her wish and I was told to drop everything I was doing to do what she needs, no matter what I've got going on. We're still working from home, but as one of the accountants, I have access to our office building and get asked to take care of some stupid things, such as mailing our prints to the printing company, and yesterday, Mary was there. I go around and pick up all the pages to be printed, put them in order and get them ready to package, and Mary comes along screaming how I didn't call a customer she demanded I call, an email I hadn't even seen because I was collecting prints. The owner of the company, being in his office, hears her screaming and decides to share that he did inform me to drop whatever I was doing to help her catch up on her daily activities. Me, already annoyed with them, asks, "You're sure you want me to drop what I'm doing and call our customer right now?" And with the nod and turn to go back to his office, I drop the official prints on the ground and they scatter across the floor, bending and crumpling the papers. Makes the printers angry when they're not perfect. And I walk away to the phone. Mary screams and yells at the owner, who turns around and laughs and says he didn't mean it literally, but since I was doing what Mary was supposed to be doing, she could stay and fix my mess. She ended up staying 5 hours past our regular closing time, reprinting and redoing the magazine order to get it out in time for publishing. The accounting team was so proud someone finally did something, and she refuses to talk to any of us anymore. Thankfully, best news ever. After hearing this story, I'm sure if OP knew beforehand that all they had to do to get Mary to stop talking to them was to annoy them to a certain degree, they'd have done it a long time ago. So quickly now, I want to explain just how to enter the giveaway. All you need to do is leave a comment on this video relevant to something you saw or heard or liked in any story in that video. That's it, you're entered. But it applies to every single video we upload this week. So to get the best odds at winning the $30 Amazon gift card giveaway, you'll want to leave a comment relating to any of those videos all week long. On Sunday, after the last video has gone out, I'll pick one comment at random and let you know on the following Monday who has won, and then it starts all over again. So make sure you leave a relevant comment on this video and additionally every video I upload this week for the absolute best chance to win. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and give the videos a like too, because it helps more than you could imagine. That said, our final story of the day is by BlueberryKind. Grandpa got kicked out of a bar. When my grandpa was a young man, he worked on a ship. One time in a new city, he and his shipmates went on land to a bar. They had some drinks and there was an altercation with another person. Grandpa got kicked out of the bar and told to leave by the bar owner. His mates weren't kicked out. My grandpa still chuckles when he tells this part. When I got kicked out, I started running fast. Much later, when his mates returned to the ship, they told my grandpa this. The bar owner said he sure runs fast. The mate said, well, yeah, he was in charge and has all our money. Police were called, but because the bar owner kicked him out before asking for payment, there wasn't anything they could do. Hey, not the mate's fault, and shoot, Grandpa got their drinks for free. Grandpa knew they had to get out of there ASAP, and Grandpa didn't kid around. Now that is a great story. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comment section down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving the video a like and subscribe if you haven't, and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you did, whether it was just watching the video or commenting, subscribing, whatever you do. Thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. Any single thing you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I appreciate the heck out of it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and until next time, I'll be right here on the Storytime channel.